Hello, everybody. Good morning again. This is Kenny Brown. And if you're a car guy who wants to learn more about performance, well, you're in the right place. Because we'll take the next hour to kind of share with you, the extensive knowledge I have in building cars, my professional motorsports, and answering your questions, which is the most important thing. We've got a couple of good ones this morning. But going down everybody knows that Carrie gives them a handy little list to read, otherwise I'll forget. We've got a special guest today. Dan is from Cruise for a Cause. I don't have that written down. I had Mustangs on a Mission and just went. Anyway. Dan is a pretty amazing guy. Every year, him and his wife travel around the country to car shows for charity, collecting donations to go to prostate cancer and breast cancer and cancer awareness. And on their own, every year they raise up to almost $100,000. So this year, obviously, there's no events. So he came up with the concept of, well, let's have a virtual car show. So he'll be here to tell you more about it. But the cool part is he's lined up just a spectacular list of guests who are going to speak next weekend. I think I'm on at 3:00 next Saturday. So I mean, it's really a great cause, and I'd really like you guys to contribute to it. And there'll be a way to do that right there. I think it's $20, but the value you get out of it is just tremendous. So I think I'll save the rest of my stuff till after Dan. So, okay, here we go. Technology, we keep working at it. And yay, I did it.
Good morning, Kenny. Good morning, Kenny.
So why don't you tell everybody about your cause and how you came up with this concept and how they can help and contribute and to help fight breast cancer, prostate cancer, both of which are very important to all of us, and also create cancer awareness.
Okay. Well, like you mentioned in your brief, events this year have certainly went off the grid. There's just been no events to travel to. So the fundraising aspect for me kind of changed a lot. And so somebody actually had proposed doing an online car show. And I said, well, okay, there's a lot of online car shows. So it's like, how can we really make something special out of that? So the idea of Mustangs on a Mission came up, and it was, I kind of had the thought of like almost a Jerry Lewis telethon that we used to do on Labor Day weekend that raised lots of money for muscular dystrophy. And so we reached out to individuals like yourself, and that, like Kenny said, he's on at 3:00 next Saturday, but we've got 2 days from noon until 7 p.m. next Saturday and Sunday. And the list of guests is for me pretty phenomenal to me. It's amazing that all of them that we asked have said yes. We've got Lee Holman of Holman Moody. We've got Art Hyde, who used to be a Mustang's chief engineer with Mustang program a couple of times. Justin Pollock, Jack Rouse Jr.'s on. Bon Gettin Jr.'s on. Jim Owens, who's from Ford. Billy Johnson, who's a test driver and racer for Ford. Drove actually at Le Mans with the GT when Ford won Le Mans. Dave Parasek. So we've got tons of people. That's just naming some of them. If you go to mustangsonamission.org and you click on the homepage and then check for the schedule, you'll see the list of everybody. Everybody's about a half an hour to speak. We've got 4 panels. We've got a bullet panel about the bullet that was just recently auctioned off. The SVT panel, so we've got a whole panel of engineers from SVT over the years. Shelby's got a shakedown. Then we've got another big panel that I'm excited to see is the Mustang Media panel, and that's got writers like Donald Farr and Steve Turner and John Clore and Rob Keenan, just tons of people that are part of this event. So we're really excited.
Well, I think I'm really excited too, and it's like I say, this is a great cause. There is a way to, is it posted how to do that?
Yeah, we'll put a link up for Mustangs on a Mission.
Okay, Carrie said they're going to put a link up for Mustangs on a Mission, and everything they need to know will be there.
Yes,
so they can contribute and sign up and see the whole list of people. That's very cool. Yeah. We're supporting this because it's a good cause, but I mean, Dan is so dedicated to this. I mean, it's something that's really worth some tremendous value. So I think with that, we will say goodbye to Dan, and everybody go to his site and
$20.
contribute. Oh, it's only $20.
Right.
And
The reminder is that if you want to join the car show registration, you have to register by the end of tomorrow, because we need a week to accumulate everybody. You can register for the event, to participate in the event, but just make sure you get signed up by the end of tomorrow for the car show.
That's another important thing, because I know you guys keep sending in pictures of your cars, and we've got some really great pictures in the Speed Therapy Society. So, I mean, that's another good reason to do it. Get your car in there.
Well, I think
it's part of a national audience.
Yeah, I think it's just an incredible value, because I've done events like this online, like attended them, where they have these major VIP guest speakers, and it's like $1,000 to $2,000. So, I mean, $20 for this value, it's worth it, even if you only get to see one of the speakers if you're busy. Definitely sign up. $20. MustangsOnAmission.org.
Okay, that's it. Well, Dan,
Okay.
thank you for coming on this morning, and let me get back to working in technology, and hooray. I told you guys we're going to keep working on this technology until we get it right. We're doing much better at it, as you now see. So, yeah, that's a great cause. I strongly urge everybody to get involved. Let's see. We're also going to try to, now that we know how to do this, we're going to try to have maybe once a month or so, bring on a special guest from the industry. During the Speed Therapy Academy, we have special guests come in for a whole hour. They talk about the products. Our guys ask questions. Well, we're going to do like a miniature version of this for Saturday morning Cars and Coffee, where one of our experts will come in and just do maybe a little 10 or 15 minute talk on whatever their subject is. I think next month, Ben O'Connor for Impact Racing. I'm guessing he's going to talk real briefly on some of the tips on restraints. Next weekend. Well, it shows you how much I'm in the link. We've got a couple of good questions. We've got what I'd like to cover today is the philosophy I use in building a car. You know, one of my performance cars. Anybody that's ever driven one of my cars, even we've got people that have picked up used Kenny Brown Fox Mustangs and SN95s, and they just rave about how good they work. So, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Also, we got there's been a lot of questions on the 550. We've got a couple of new parts we're adding to the system on 550, and one new part for the IRS guys. And let's see. Okay, well, let's get into it. So I think we'll start with. I'm going to start with the products we're putting into on the website. And the 550 cars. One of the big issues we've run into is techs trying to set the camber in the back, because we typically run more camber than OE. And to do it, it's the inside upper link, and it's pretty much a pain. So what we've done is we've sourced this little beauty, and it's forged aluminum, which is a lot nicer than what's in the car, but better. It adjusts camber at both ends. At one end, you can do a preset. At the other end, you got this handy dandy little adjuster. It just drops right in. And as you can see, it is an eccentric. So it makes it really, really easy to adjust camber. I mean, I'm just really excited about this. It's a seriously good product, you know, well made and extremely functional. And then we've had a lot of questions on when I say lock down the IRS. We do it very simply. These are a series of bushing. So just go into the bushings and kind of lock them down. You know, the main bushing stays there, but at the end, you get a completely rigid IRS, and it helps take a lot of the wheel hop out. So those are going to be on the website. And one more new thing is we've got these back. These are the IRS rear sway bar adjustable end links. And, you know, I've talked about how important end links are, so you can make sure that your sway bars are not preloaded. So that's that part of it. Let's see, and Jim, I don't know, I'm probably gonna screw up your last name, Jim. Jewel, maybe?
Yeah, Jewel.
Jewel, okay. He asked if we could put the alignment specs up for each generation of Mustang. We've done that, and that should be in the Speed Therapy Academy resource section. And he also asked about locking down the IRS. And there was something else in here. There's a copy.
It's also on the Speed Therapy Society group too. So it's on both on the Society and the Academy page.
Okay, both on the Speed Therapy Society and in the Speed Therapy Academy. And then, So some details would be great too. I'm trying to figure out this question. Setting the camera to track bonus on tires was great. However, some details would be great too. How do you do it with suspension loaded on a video? Someone actually changed the camera on the fly. The easy way to do it on the fly is all you have to do is jack the car up a little bit, get the load off of it, and you can move, it'll naturally just drop in all by itself, but you can also, pry it back and then get it locked down and then just put the car down. I mean, that's how we do it. It's if you try to do it with a car on the ground, it'll flop in and you'll never get it back out. So that's that question. And actually, this is a question from Robert Johns. He brought up both them, Cars and Coffee and Speed Therapy Academy. And he said that I mentioned that I was swapping a Tremec TKO to an S550, but he wanted to know about the parts for the clutch. He wants to ditch his MT82. Well, anybody with S197 or S550 probably has been frustrated with shifting. And that's because the reason the shifting, when you're driving down the street, it's fine. But we're really getting into it. You got the hammer down, you're flying, you want to just zip through those gears. A lot of times that doesn't happen. Well, the big reason for that is part of the shifter is mounted to the transmission. Another part of the shifter is mounted to the tunnel. So you've got two different planes working on that shifter. So when you're full throttle, the engine's going to torque, it's going to twist the transmission up, and the body's going to stay the same. We use a shifter that actually bolts right to the back of the transmission. The entire shifter's mounted on the transmission. It's really positive. It's click, click, click. And that's kind of like the first way to try to get over that. But if you really wanted to change transmissions, he kind of misunderstood me. We're adapting a TKO 600 to an S197 for David's race car in California, and we're using the Tremec for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a lot lighter than the 6-speed, and this is a full-on race car. In fact, the engine is going to be an all-aluminum 408, but also because we've got a better gear selection in that. But the problem is the little shift handle is going to come up like under the dash. So we're building an adapter so back to the driver so the driver can shift the transmission. What I told him is if you want to change the transmission in the 550 or even S197, the Magnum XL, the Tremec Magnum XL is the only choice. It is robust. It shifts great. And you just won't ever have troubles with it. I mean, it's just when I put a Magnum XL in Ruby, I was just blown away about how good of a transmission it was. And then in the Speed Therapy Academy, I think it was this week, we had I can't remember who said that they had put one in their car, and they said their car shifted like butter. So if you want to upgrade your transmission, there's a lot of opportunity. There's two ways that you can do it to improve your shifting. Obviously, getting a shifter doesn't fix the transmission, but if you can get it to work with just a shifter, then you're pretty good. So anyway, that answers that question. Also, we had somebody call in. It's kind of strange. Rich said somebody called in and wanted to know if they had to use JRZ shocks for the front and rear grip kit. The answer is no, not necessarily. The geometry is engineered around a car that's about 1.5 inches lower. But outside of that, you have to have a better shock and higher spring rates than factory to really make it work. Other than that, I mean, we've got a couple different shock packages that we do with the front and rear grip kits. For those of you that haven't been with us for a long time, my suspensions boil down in 3 parts. We can sell individual pieces, but because everything in the suspension is engineered to work with every other part, we decided just to make one kit. I mean, you bolt the thing in, you go. I mean, the worst incoming calls that I have to try to fix somebody's problem is when somebody has this part from that company, that part from that company, this part from somebody else. I mean, when you start doing that, you're kind of like on your own R&D mission. And I just can't give them good information because I don't have any firsthand information. So that's why I recommend find a philosophy and stick with it. And our suspension is you buy the rear grip kit, you buy the front grip kit, and you buy springs and shocks. That's it. We have worked everything out, so it's just a bolt and go. The last thing you need to be doing is making a whole bunch of adjustments to track. The only adjustment we have for our drivers to make is if they get the single adjustable shocks. When they get the shocks, they come pre-assembled, loaded with springs, with a base pre-adjustment, a setup sheet, and then also some tips on just basic 101 tuning tips for the shocks. So like I say, I mean, as long as you've got a better spring rate and a better shock, the front and rear grip kits will work with anything. So I'm kind of hustling through this today. It might be because this has been like a horrific asthma week for me. So my asthma medication sometimes makes me get going. And I'm trying to slow myself down. As Carrie says, I get going too fast. But people have been watching me for a while know when I get going, Let's see. Oh, questions. Remember, are people sending in their questions, Carrie?
No, I haven't seen any yet.
Oh, send in some questions. I mean, I'm at my best when I'm answering questions. So, man, I made it through all 3 sheets in a record time. I think I did. Let me go back and check, see if I missed it. Oh, that's right. I haven't talked about the cars. Thank you, Carrie. Cars. My philosophy on building cars. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I started my racing back in the 70s, early 70s. And, once you get feel of a real race car on track, man, there's nothing like it. I mean, just being able to, just being so connected to the car, going around the corner, just feeling the G-loads in that car just digging into the asphalt. I mean, that just, I just couldn't get over that. And also back in the 70s, my main business was working on sports cars, typically British sports cars, Italian sports cars, and like the Japanese cars, the 240Z and the Nissan 510. We made a lot of improvements on them, and I got using European shocks, and I just love the way they drive because I drive. My budometer is what tells me if it's a good car or not. So that's the kind of like the background. And I'm looking in camera, and I forgot Jimmy Clark. For those who were last week, they saw we had Dan Gurney at Le Mans up there. Well, this week, because they're running the Indy 500 this week, I thought it'd be very appropriate to put my Jim Clark up there in 1965 when he won the Indy 500. And Jim Clark is a personal hero of mine because he's Scottish. I'm Scottish. So I've got a couple Jim Clark pictures, but I thought that'd be really appropriate for today. They're running Indy 500 this weekend. So Jimmy Clark's up there. And for those that haven't been with us for a while, that crusty old toolbox back there, that toolbox has been with me for over 40 years. It's been to, I think, every major racetrack in North America. That's my education. That's, you learn, you do that much time working on cars and racing. You kind of get a lot of things figured out. So between my racing background and my love for driving, more so, and love for how cars feel, you got to have and if the car has to drive, I don't care what it looks like on the outside, it's got to drive. And that's how that's the background setting for how I develop my cars. I look at I look at all the things underneath the car that make it work. To start with, the suspension, the shocks, the brakes. I have my big philosophy is before you add a lot of power to your car, you need to build the performance platform, because that's what I do with my cars. Performance platform is chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. You get those 5 things right, and you're going to have a car that just drives like a dream, and that's why my cars drive so well. The thing is, when it comes to like the suspension, I made not a habit, but I made it a point over the years to study suspension geometry, because back in the mid 70s, we were racing open wheel cars and with great engines. We actually started out in racing as an engine builder. We had great engines, but we're getting beat by a couple guys that didn't really even have as good power as we did, but they had better chassis. That's kind of like changed my thinking. Man, maybe we better start doing a little chassis work, do some chassis work, and all of a sudden, boom, we're right there. So that's carried with me all my life. When we did the Celine program in '86, it was supposed to be pure showroom stock, so we really couldn't change much. But I learned a lot that year. We were running just brakes about that big in the front and drum brakes in the back for endurance racing. Imagine doing a couple 24-hour races with teeny little brakes. The easiest way to slow the car down is just get back the bumper of a Corvette and let him slow you down. But what we learned in '86, we carried over through '87. We had much better cars. We upgraded the brakes, the chassis. On '86 cars, we did do the 3-point strut tower brace Atlanta, SC shape, throw it out. It's not part of the production car. '87, part of the production car. So, I mean, what I learned from that, I was really lucky to hook up with a guy from Ford, the Mustang group, who was on suspensions. And in the evenings, he would work with me on different, trying to improve the geometry. And what I ended up doing, Steve, who was just marvelous at getting stuff. One day I got a call that there was a package out at the airport for me. And I went to it wasn't main airport, it's one of the freight things. And here are 3 brand new front K members, not a single hole in them. So I took them back and worked pretty much all night. And in the morning, when everybody came back, there were 3 K members that looked like they were stock, but every single hole had been moved a little bit in a lot. And nobody would ever know. And the cars turned so much better after that. So it's kind of like I've been at this for a long time. And after that came, I call that Advanced Geometry Suspension Systems, AGS for short. And that what I learned there carried into AGS1. And AGS1 carried into AGS2. And AGS2 carried into AGS3, which is the SN95, and AGS 3.5, which is the IRS SN95, and AGS4, which is the S197. But each one, I was able to improve the geometry and the chassis. So when I'm building a car, I mean, you got to have tires on the ground. So look at how are we going to keep all the tires on the ground, get the maximum amount of tire contact, and once I got that, once the geometry's done, then I go back to springs and shocks. With all my background in motorsports and in European cars, I just like the way the European cars ride. The valving they use, the strategy in valving is so much better. So that's some of the only shocks I've been using over the years. Back when there weren't a whole lot of choices, it was Oconee and Bilstein. Well, now we've got just a plethora of choices for like our later model cars. JRZ is our premium shock, and it's an amazing package. JRZ is a company from Holland, and they custom build the shock. I mean, this is not on the shelf product. We put the order in, they'll custom build the shock for me, package it up, and then ship it next day air. But that's kind of our premium shock, and they're amazing. They come in single adjustable, double adjustable, and double with a canister. Everybody that puts them on raves about them, and I rave about them too. That's our premium. We also have like some H&R packages. We've got like a track package and a street performance. And then we just started something new. We had somebody out Northwest that her budget couldn't really stretch. She got front grip kit, rear grip kit, but her budget really couldn't stretch to get a full shock package. So I came up with a cost-effective compromise. We got some yellow conies and some H&R springs that have like a 320, I think, 25-pound front spring rate, which is kind of right in the range. In spring rates, if you look at the base spring rate, and I'll talk about the S197 is the best example because that's spring on shock. When you put the spring on the control arm, you have to use a motion ratio to calculate the spring rate versus the spring on the shock. But factory cars come in maybe anywhere from 130 to 160 pound springs in the front. Our street performance, well, the newer cars like the GT350s, I think they're up to 190 for the 350 and 240 for the R. I have the whole sheet on this. I'd have to look. So that's pretty much, we're and on the aftermarket stuff, you're not going to get much about 225, and you have no control over ride height. That's why I use coilovers. But my spring philosophy starts. You start out with a 131, let's say 131.70 spring on your car. The best you can get in the aftermarket is around a 200, 225. My touring package is 350. Street performance is 400. Intermediate track on the street tires is in the 500, 550 range, depending on the driver. And then advanced track on sticky tires is 650. And you think that's a lot from a late Sun Paul and World Challenge on Pirelli slicks. We were running 850, 950, depending on the track. So it's the more spring you put into a Mustang, the better they turn, the quicker they get. Now, the downside of it is the more spring you put in, as you go up in spring rate, your window of opportunity for making a mistake shrinks with every level you go up on springs. So by the time you get up to 850-pound springs, you really can't make too many mistakes unless you get lightning quick reflexes or a trained racing driver. That's why we keep everybody in that 650 range. It seems to be just a great track setup. That's what I run in my car. So that's kind of how I look at spring rates. So, I mean, it's like everything under the car has to just flat work. That's the very first thing. And then you get down to brakes. I mean, if you go fast, you have to stop. Using a wall or a tree is kind of like, it's a very effective way to stop, but it's not really preferred. And what braking is all about, I mean, you're taking a Mustang, which is, let's say 3,800 pounds. You're 120 miles down the straightaway. That's 3,800 pounds of kinetic mass traveling at 120 miles an hour. That's a lot. So what the job of the brakes are really in an effort to slow you down. They take kinetic energy and turn it into heat energy. And that's why brakes get so hot. I mean, they're taking all that kinetic energy and turning it into heat energy, which means they're pulling energy out of the car and putting it into your brake rotors. So that's why it's so important to have a good set of brakes. Even if you've got stock brakes and doing track days, you need pads. You got to have better pads. You've got to have a pad that works within the heat range that the compound was designed for. Because street pads are typically good to maybe, I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, I'm guessing like 400 degrees, but they're also good down to minus 20. Street performance pads, you might get up in the 800 range. We have like, I think 20 different pad compounds to choose from when people call in. I'll pick a compound for them. But on my car, I've been running at 1,200 degrees rotor temperature. And I've been using a brake. Then I was using a brake that the compounding was good between 400 and 1,600. So it's right in the middle. So I guess the best brake wear and the best stopping power. And so we've got different heat ranges. We've got some that'll go from 100 up to 1,000. That would be for novice drivers. And then we got one that goes up to 1,200. That could be advanced novice, so to speak. And then they start going up from there. We've got one customer who's running 1,800 degrees on his brakes. We've got pads that go to 2,000. So brakes are really important. And then you've got to have, even if it's a stock caliber, you have to have good brake pads if you go on track. But I'm not good with stock brakes. So all of my cars, the brakes are updated, or upgraded. I'll use S197 because that's what we're doing the most of right now. although we still are featuring and providing parts and technical support for 99 to 04 Cobras, Mustang Cobras with the IRS. I think we're the only people that really are doing much with IRS, because I think I understand IRS. I mean, it's nothing new to me when it came out on my racing back in the 70s. So we use S197 because it's simple. But what I typically do is I'll put like a big brake kit on the front, and I've been using Bear for like 20 years. That's a great company, great product, and great people. So I'll do a brake upgrade. Typically, if it's just a street car, we use like the Pro Plus setup, which is, it's kind of like a street brake. It uses OE pads. So it's kind of a street brake. It's, I mean, a great street brake package. Yeah, it's not really a track package, although we had one customer that ran an entire season of HPD with those brakes, but we had good pads. I mean, that's the other trick. But I mean, I use the extreme, the 6 keys, the 6 piston on the front, and on the back. What I do is I upgrade from the standard rotor to a 14-inch rotor, still retaining the factory caliper. And that increases the leverage, kind of like just getting a bigger breaker bar to improve the braking. And the reason I keep the standard caliper on the back is Mustangs have what's called a C-lock differential axle, which means the axles come in, you drop a little C-clip on, they pull back, and the pin for the diff comes in between them. Well, invariably, there's a little bit of play. Some cars, it's just very slight, and other cars, it's a lot. Well, if you put a big brake package on an 8.8 axle without doing something about that, the movement of the axle, what happens is you get pad knockback. You go around a couple of corners, and then you put your foot on the brake, and nothing's there. You got to pump the brakes up. So I don't use big brakes on the back unless we upgrade how they fit on the back, which is either adapting for 9-inch. The biggest thing is just adapt back in for 9-inch axles, and there's ends that we get from Strange, and just they build the axle and just drop it in, and you're good. But you've got to do something about that. We've seen in one of the aftermarket companies on their C-clip replacements, they send 2 different sizes. One's bigger than the other. But on some cars that works great. Anyway, the point is you can't upgrade the brakes unless you have the sliding caliper in the back to work with the knock. But if you put a 14-inch rotor on the back, that's just about the same as putting a bigger caliper on the smaller rotor. So I mean, that's the brakes, and then it's depending on where we go from there. I mean, certainly the transmission, the car's got to shift. I mean, I talked about earlier. I don't like fishing for gears. I don't like hitting the wrong gear. I need to feel a shift to make it positive. So we either put a shifter in, or in some cases just change the transmission. And then also I'll use a lot of aluminum drive shafts. You got to get rid of that mass. Mass is horsepower. It takes more horsepower to turn a lot of mass than to turn a little mass. So we go through the drivetrain at the back of the car. I'm thinking, okay, depending on the applications, everything I do is custom built. Pick a rear end ratio that's going to work. And typically it's going to be in that, for the newer cars with Coyotes, it's maybe 373 range. That seems to be a good ratio. And I always use Torsons back there. We started using Torsons on the IRS cars, or a torsion type differential, using Torsons on the IRS cars, and it worked so well, we just started adapting them to later cars. And Ford, I think, even used them for their race cars. All came with Torsons, and the newer cars when you get a Performance 1 package, you get the Torsen in the back in 373 gears. So, I mean, the drivetrain has to go through, and as far as power, I mean, if you're building a driver's car, you don't need tons of power. But for the newer cars, it's just as simple as a good cold air kit, headers, and a free-flowing exhaust, and you can pick up quite a bit of power without cracking into the motor. We used to build in the late 90s. We built a whole bunch of supercharged Cobras, where I use a Vortec type centrifugal, and newer cars were using I'll think of it. But anyway, I use centrifugal because on the positive displacement, like the Eaton that sits on top of the motor, that is good for instant torque. I mean, as soon as you put your foot down, bang, you got torque because the pressure's right there. In a Mustang, unless you're a drag racer, you really don't need instant torque. It's coming off the corner. I mean, for the most part, they're loose. And if they don't have my rear grip kit on it, they're really loose. And you got to wait to put your foot all the way down. Otherwise, you break traction in the back. But having a supercharger that has so much torque, you're going to break traction coming off a corner, slows you down. I mean, you might be really, really honking at the end of the straightaway, but you're not going to get off that corner. And the key to quick lap times is how quick you get off the corner. So with a centrifugal type, it's more like a turbo. It's a mechanical turbo, let's call it. And as RPM spools up, the pressure spools up. So rather than having a whole bunch of extra pressure when just coming off the corner, it's going to start feeding in pressure as you go faster and faster. And it's pretty transparent, and the car just hauls off. So that's why I use that type of supercharger. Now the positive displacement, like the one-sitting motor, that's the one to use for trucks. Absolutely, there's no question about it. So anyway, that's the whole power thing. We've done a bunch of other different things, but then again, you have to, if you make more power, you got to cool it. So we helped the company develop a triple pass, triple flow aluminum radiator. We've got an SM95, 197, and 550 that work beautifully. So, I mean, the outside of the car comes last. Now, depending on the customer and what they want, we'll do some things the outside. If it's a really fast car, we'll add some aero to it. But I mean, it's all about the driving experience, all the things I need to put in there to make it work. Now, in the earlier cars, if I couldn't find in the market what I needed to make it work, we made it. That's where our parts program came from. The parts program flows out of the car program. And that's why you don't see tons of different like control arms on our website. It's just the ones that I use. Our website is just the stuff that I use. So it's proven. We got the best technical support. But it came from car builds, not from a warehouse. Okay. All right. I know some companies are a parts company that will pull off the shelf and build a car. And we're just the opposite. We build the car and then we take the parts we had to create, even the parts we use, and put them on the shelf because I know they work, it's tested, and it gives us, I say, the best technical support of anybody in the aftermarket. Is what we sell is what we use. Do we have it? Did I get through the whole car? Oh, seating. If it's going to be a track car, you need to have better seats. If the car doesn't come with Recaros, you need to think about upgrading. But even before the seats, you need to get a good harness. And we do have some good harness belts that are just a 4-point that are pretty easy to use because you have to get your butt locked down. And that makes such a huge difference. And then if you're getting more serious, then you get a better seat. You have to remove the element of having to support yourself while you're driving with your seat. And anybody that when they start out, they know they're going around a corner, they got one knee up against one thing, going around another corner, another knee up against something else. You got to get rid of that. You got to be just 100% focused on driving, but let the seat and the belt just hold you in place. That way you become part of the car. And I mean, that's the key. That's what I'm always looking for when I build a car. I want to sit in that seat and I want to feel like I am part of the car and the car is part of me, because there's a connection. I mean, the car will talk to you. The car will tell you things that you need to know if you just listen or know what to look for. So that's why it's important to get locked down in the seat. And then some cars will put like a roll bar in the back, 197, 550s. I mean, from there on out, it gets pretty customized depending on the customer, but chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes, and it's got to drive. It's got to drive like it's got to drive. I mean, it has to be a great driving car. So Gary's nodding. Maybe we have some questions.
Did you already go over those parts?
Yeah, I wrote these.
All those parts?
Yep, I went over all those parts.
Huh, I missed you. Okay.
Yeah, so now who's not paying attention?
Exactly. Yes, we have some questions. And we have, what's interesting is we have...
I can't hear you.
What's interesting is at the beginning, you don't see this part, but so many people are from all over the country. We had Dan Robinson. He's always coming in from Niagara Falls, and everybody's...
He must be on honeymoon.
No, he lives there permanently. He's on the Canadian side. Fred Fetcher from Clinton, Tennessee. Brad from Ormond by the Sea in Florida. We have Joe Johnson from Humboldt, Texas. Dell from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We have Jim Graham. I'm going to mention him in just a moment. And Jesus from Augusta, Georgia. Angie from Tennessee. Bridget from Indiana. And we also have Christopher from Bulgaria. So, I mean, that's the people that told us where they were from. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Christopher, just as a side note, he's in Bulgaria, and he watches Cars and Coffee pretty regularly. But he also signed up for the Academy. And it's 7 o'clock our time. It's 2 o'clock in the morning his time. And he hasn't missed one yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of dedication.
Yeah. And so anyway, Jim Graham is on here. He was on another time too, I think. He's did the Mountaineer launch with Lynn St. James with him.
Oh, yeah, that's
Do you
right.
remember anything about that?
Yeah, we, there's that asthma kicking up. Back in, I can't remember the year, 90,
You probably
90
know. Yeah.
94. No, before 90.
Well, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
Lynn St. James and I are, pretty good friends. And when we set up our new shop in Gaston Alley, we sublet some space there. Her office is right next to mine. Anyway, Ford had her do the launch of the Mercury Mountaineer, which was the Ford version of the Explorer. And to do that, they put together a program of One Lap of America they ran, I think. And in One Lap of America, that back then, you drive from track to track, and somebody would put in one lap, and that would be for their best time. So the way the program worked is Lynn put together a 4-girl racing team, and I built the car, and I went with them, and that was part of the Mercury launch. And it was pretty cool, well organized, because we had to put extra outlets in the car for cell phones, because they were doing live interviews all across the country, from radio station to radio station. So I mean, it was a pretty cool program. It was a really cool car. Lynn ended up driving that for a real long time afterwards. She just loved that car. It was, we did things I didn't think you could do to make the car work, but we made it work.
It was just an incredible program and well ran. So, okay, we have a few questions. Okay, Kobe Ward, he has a question on an S197. What degree of downward angle should I try to achieve if I already have adjusted control arm brackets on my S197? What pinion angle is best for the S197?
Okay, that's a really good question. This is something a lot of people don't understand. When you talk about pinion angle, you talk about the snout and the differential. And pinion angle is totally dependent on the downward angle of the motor. Typically, engine transmission will be angled downward at about maybe 2.5, 3 degrees. Well, to keep the drive shaft from vibrating, the pinion angle has to be up the same amount, at least the same amount. So if you got 3 degrees down at the front, you need 3 degrees up at the back. That way, that eliminates the driveline vibration. If they're straight, then you get a jump rope. If they're in the same direction, you get a jump rope. So they've got to be opposite each other to make, because that's what the drive shaft was designed for. So that's a good question. A lot of people don't understand that. But whatever the transmission is down, set the back, and if you don't know what the transmission down, use 3 degrees. That seems to work most of the time.
Okay, and then the next question. I'm going back and forth between screens. Okay, Kyle Kent. I think he's talking about brake pads. He goes, those numbers change, of course, based on material. How much difference in pad selections going to be carbon/carbon? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I really don't know. The pads for racing all uses is Hawk, DTC 70s and 60s, although they did come out with the new 80s. But for the track guys, you don't need a super aggressive pad, because the Hawk pads, I mean, for racing, I mean, you hammer on the brakes. One set of pads lasts a race, and you're replacing them all the time. And I try to teach people how to not be so aggressive on the brakes. You can still slow the car down, you can still go fast, and you can make brakes pads last. But the ones we're using now, the G-Locks, I'm not sure what the compounding is in them, but I mean, we've got a tremendous range of temperature ranges for those. And what we're finding is that they seem to be very easy on rotors. And the other big thing is we can get them pre-bedded. So you don't have to go through the process of bedding pads. And for those who don't know what that is, we got race pads. Anything that's not a street pad has to be bedded in. And by bedding in, it means you have to get that pad up to critical temperature, at least the temperature that the pad operates in. And you have to go around and around and make big stops and until you hammer the brakes and there's no pedal and you can smell brake dust. that's when the pads are bedded. Then you go back and let them cool off completely. The next time you go out, you got brake pedal. Well, by getting them pre-bedded, that eliminates that part, which puts you on track more, focusing on driving. So I say we've got compounds up to 20 degrees. But Mustangs with brake ducts, and brake ducts are important. We carry brake ducts. I'm typically seeing 1,200 degrees on my cars.
Okay, and then the next question is, going back and forth here, Chris Melatu has said he solved his rear brake problem. So thanks, Ken.
Yay, Chris. Chris is at, I think, Road Atlanta this weekend. And there was a small issue with the rear brakes. Yeah, he's got the killer K-Brown Profar brakes on his car. And these are true professional race brakes at club prices. The features we have packed into them, you have to go to the Brembo GTR to get the same amount of features, and that's about $8,500 an axle set. The Brembos are, and then we're down at $3,900. So, they're a great rate. I mean, I've featured them a couple times. The calipers are massive. We get R-spec rotor, which is lighter and cools better than the regular rotor. I mean, it's a fabulous brake pack. Anyway, he had a small issue this morning. I kind of talked him through it, and he got it solved. I'm glad now he can go crazy. He's going to start taking tire temperatures now, which I've been wanting him to do, and that's the only way you know if the car's working. You got to do tire temps. Tire temps, number one, you have to get the pressure right. And you'd be amazed how much difference a half a pound or a pound tire pressure will make in how the car handles. So we talk about tire pressures first, and then from that you can adjust the camber. And, that'll tell you a lot about how the car is working.
And Chris said he was, oh, yeah, and they stopped too.
Yeah, Chris, on the brakes, he said, oh, yeah, they stopped too. But it's cool, the front pad, actually it's a 4-piston the freight racing caliper that uses the 6-piston brake pad, but the fronts are an inch thick, pads are an inch thick. Now the back is just the standard 6-piston pad, which is 0.71 inches. It's 0.71 thick, which is still pretty good. Most of the factory pads are in that 5.5 range, 0.55. Okay.
Okay. So Joe Johnson has a question. He has an GT350.
Okay.
Okay. Will long tube headers work with the Shelby GT350 without problems with the vibration from the flat plane crank? I was thinking about installing a solid aluminum drive shaft and long tube headers. Anyone have some experience with the above?
Okay. Now I have no firsthand experience to share. We can have Rich do a little research on the headers. I can't see where they would make a difference because all they're doing is getting the exhaust gas out faster. And the aluminum drive shaft you want to put into, you're taking a lot of mass out. As long as pinion angles are right, then you should be okay. My guess. I don't know that for sure. It's just purely a guess.
Okay. I don't know if this is related to the question he has. He said he is running stock brake pads with 11.5-inch Need for Speed 6 GR wheels with 325 by 19 Nito NT01 tires. Yeah,
and Joe's in the academy. We talked about his brakes. It was last Tuesday night, I think, and he's replacing his pads a lot. So we're going to get him hooked up with. I picked just out of my head. I picked a couple of compounds. I need to go back and double check, and we'll get him onto a better pad, and it'll last longer. So.
Chris Mellitu says tire temps. Did I mention tire temps?
Yeah. Go, Chris.
Okay, and then we have Brian West. What motor mounts do you use to put SBF into S197 with your K member? I'm not sure what SBF stands for.
SBF.
S as in Sam, B, F. What motor mounts do you use to put SBF into S197 with your K member? Brian, maybe you can
elaborate
on that.
Yeah, on our front grip K member, we only use one motor mount. It's I just made some up the other day. You run down through the shop and pick one up. I do my motor mounts a little differently. I pretty much do everything differently from everybody else. That's because I don't play follow the leader. Find them back there. Okay, no, maybe not. Okay, these are, what I do is that to make sure that they move around. We had some issues with these moving around on race cars and track cars, so I actually glue it together. And these are not. This is like vibration spacer, vibration pad for the top. The whole intent behind this is rather than using urethane. I mean, urethane can compress. I just don't like urethane for motor mounts. This is actually vibration material for machines, for machinery. You know, I can't remember. It's supposed to handle like 8,000 pounds, something like that. So we got to put that together so that it just sits in there. So it's the only motor mount we use. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about.
Yeah, well, he's in the academy, so we can talk to him on Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Brian, you're in the academy, so we can talk about that Tuesday night.
And then I think we have one more question. So if anybody has any other questions, get them in now.
Your last chance to send in a question.
I think I went through other questions. Mustangonamission.org again.
Here we go. Mustangsonamission.org. Great cause, great people. And it was a great value.
Worth your $20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your car in the car show.
Yeah. Car show ends. You have to sign up by tomorrow in order to
get in the car show. You have to be signed up by tomorrow night, because it's going to take him some time to organize all the cars and get them in some semblance of order.
And it's $20 to get your car in the virtual car show. There's a lot of celebrities that are judging the different areas of the car show, and then there's a ton of industry experts. So well worth the $20, and if anything else, it's worth the donation. Okay, I think that.
I see. Brian put up a little note. He said that he liked the idea of a 4-weight Windsor in an S197. Well, I did too. I mean, you look at a Windsor motor in S197. There's like so much real estate around it. I mean, it's like a teeny little motor in this great big space. But the reason I did that is David really didn't want to go to supercharge or turbocharge. We needed to get over the 600 horsepower. And to do that with a Coyote, you got to spend a lot of money. So what we're doing is having Wagner engines up in Wisconsin, they've got a phenomenal reputation in building race motors. They're building. I originally wanted a 427, but Dennis said, for road racing, he didn't like how long the stroke was, so we cut that back to 408. It's going to be all aluminum block, aluminum heads, obviously, and dry sumped. And plus it's going to be EFI. So, we're looking for, well over 600 horsepower and a lot less weight than a big Coyote in the front of the car. And we can set it back more. So, yeah, I thought it was a good idea too. It's going to be a pretty cool car when it's done. And then again, the 5-speed, actually, the Tremec 5-speed actually, plays into the weight thing because it's lighter than the 6-speed. And the gear ratios that are in that, for the 5-speed, they've got a road racing gearbox. Tremec does for the 600s, and it's got I think a 287 first gear maybe, and a 0.82 fifth gear. So going from fourth to fifth, and the car doesn't bog down; it'll keep going, it'll keep pulling. And the other thing we do is something that I told my guys in the academy that I learned from the people doing the transmissions, that the Tremec, any of the Tremec 5-speeds, they're not a good choice for a high revving car like a Coyote or any car that makes a lot of RPMs. I guess because at high speed, high RPM, high speed, the synchros can't deal with it. So shifting becomes a problem when you get above, I think, 6,500. And, our engines typically rev to at least 7,500. So what we're doing, we have the whole thing modified. The synchros go out, some new pieces go in, and it'll shift like butter, and he can rev it as high as he wants.
Okay, and I think that's you saw Kyle Kent's referencing Brian said, I think he means amount difference between Windsor engine and the modular engine families, putting a Windsor on the S197K member. Okay,
we haven't done that yet. And for David's case, it's dry sumps are moving the motor all the way back. So he's building his own motor mounts. I think we may have to look into that at some point in time. Putting a Windsor into an S197, but so far we haven't really had. I think this is the first inquiry on that. I kind of did the Windsor into David's car all on my own.
Well, we can talk to Brian about that. That's referencing Brian's question. We can do that in the coaching call in the academy on Thursday.
Okay, yeah, okay. Why don't we do that? On Thursday nights, coaching. Actually, we call it driver's seat because one of our guys sits in the driver's seat, which means he drives the conversation. We talk about his cars and things he wants to solve. So we'll put Brian in the driver's seat next Thursday night.
Kyle Kent, who's been commenting, said, Carrie and Kenny, this is Kyle from Hennessy way back. Been a long time since we talked.
Wow. So, yeah, what really is very heartwarming and blows me away is in the Speed Therapy Society. If you guys I forgot. Okay, if you're on YouTube, okay, we're simulcasting on YouTube. You're on YouTube, tell me, so I don't have to read. You have to click.
The subscribe button, you mean?
Yeah, on YouTube, there's buttons to click. One is the bell, which tells you.
Okay, let me kind of cover this, okay? So, and this is early, just to let you know, we're simulcasting live and we're continuing to do this on YouTube and Facebook, the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page, and we're on the Kenny Brown TV channel on YouTube. And if you do, we'd appreciate if you liked it to subscribe, and then you can hit the little bell next to it and they'll get notifications every time we're up. And then also you can, all these are simulcast live, but they're also in replay on YouTube. So make sure you visit there.
So it'll be all 23 now?
There's 24. This is 24.
This is episode 24. So you got 24 episodes of Cars and Coffee up on YouTube. And Facebook, it's the same thing. Carrie, take over.
Oh, Facebook, yeah. If you can, we'll spread the word a little bit more. If you like this page or this program, that would be appreciated. And share. If you can share with your friends.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot early on. We really appreciate, I mean, if you guys can find value out of what we talk about every week, and as you know, it's a little bit different every week, and you have some friends that you think could also gain value, please share. I mean, to keep this thing going, we need to grow our audience. So we really appreciate it if you guys could share with some of your friends. Okay. That's it. We're all done.
Okay.
I got.
Herstricker wants to know where to buy those from. We'll have them on our website.
They'll be on our website shortly at $149.
Yeah, at $149.
Okay.
Price you mean or the time?
No, not the time. Okay. The price will be $149, and they're pretty light and small, so I don't think it will cost much to ship them to Bulgaria. I mean, it works. It's a simple solution, and you guys have been around me a long time. You know, I'm always, I'm a guy about simple. From all the years of racing, the more complex things are, the more headaches you have. So I just look at, what's the simplest thing we can do that's effective and works. And these are simple and they work. That's why we have them. Okay, we're going to come in I got a minute left. What can I talk about for a minute?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, we actually got through on time this week. Again, if you're not in the Speed Therapy Society, Facebook, you can join the Speed Therapy Society. There's a lot of good conversation there. A lot of people putting their cars up. And I'm starting to see pictures I haven't had in years. Somebody put a picture up of the Lounge Lizard. That's a car we built for Car and Driver. I can't remember when. First supercharged Crown Vic. We actually call it a Panther. It's Panther platform. We built quite a few supercharged Panthers. And then when the Marauder came out, we did a boatload of supercharged Marauders, and that was an awesome sedan I've ever built or driven. We had one customer that say that he laughs so hard in his car because he'll be driving around and he'll come up with a Corvette or somebody with a really hot car, and he'll just blow them off with two baby seats in the back. So that was a cool car. We made a bucket of power. You know what? We need to find the burnout video and stick that up.
Okay.
We got a burnout video we did in front of our shop.
Hey, Brad, I think you can get that.
Brad, see if you can find that. If not, I think I can come up with it. So
Chris says, thanks, Kenny, back to work. So,
okay, have a good day, Chris.
He's at the track working. So,
okay, well, this is what we got done on time this week. Speed Therapy Academy guys, we'll see you Tuesday night. Everybody else will see you next week. And again, please share and join. That's the thing that'll keep this going. I think I ran out of things to say. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm 1 minute over the hour. That's actually pretty good. Sometimes I'll go 20 minutes over the hour. but pretty good for the day. So we will see you all next week. The Speech Therapy Academy guys, we will see you on Tuesday night. Have a good weekend.